Hi, my name is Amelia. I am currently a Stanford freshman, as you can tell from the classic freshman Stanford lanyard and my Stanford hat in the back. But I was previously an IB student, and on one of my videos about my top 5 tips for writing the extended essay, I got a few comments asking for me to make a video about my top 5 tips for the IB business IA. And so today I will be sharing all of my glorious top 5 tips for success in your business IA, and these are kind of applicable to both SL and HL. To give you some qualifications, I was in HL business and I got a 7 overall in the class, and my teacher gave me a perfect score on my business IA. Not sure if my outside external grader gave me a perfect score on my business IA, but you know, we got a 7 overall in the class, so we're vibing. Okay, so let's get right into the tips. Tip number 1 is that if you're taking HL business, I would highly recommend doing a local business instead of a big corporation, unless you have easy access to someone working inside of that corporation. For the HL business IA, doing an interview with someone who works at the business that you're doing your IA on can boost your points by so much. It's a really good thing to do if you look at the rubric. And if you want to score top marks, I think it's almost necessary to do an interview with someone from the business. My business IA was centered on adding vegetarian options to certain restaurants. And originally I wanted to do McDonald's as a corporation, and I did a little bit of research into vegetarian options at fast food chains. But I realized that if I wanted to score top points, McDonald's wasn't entirely the best business for me to be analyzing. And so I chose a local business to do. I just chose a business and emailed them, and they actually responded to me. Shoot your shot, it might work out pretty well. And I just sat down with them for an interview, took some notes, and I based a lot of my business IA on that interview, and I think it did me a lot of good. I would also recommend interviewing your friends or your family, or doing focus groups. For your business IA, you need sources to back up your analysis, and so questionnaires and focus groups are 2 types of sources, and both of those can score really well because it shows that you actually reached out to people within your community to get data to back up your analysis. For me, it just kind of forced my friends to answer a bunch of questions while they were all in the same room, and I called that a focus group. And I also asked other people within my community, like my relatives and other friends who weren't in that room, and called that a questionnaire. You can really use that data for both objective and subjective data and make graphs out of it, pros and cons charts. There's really a lot that you can do to manipulate that into something to analyze, and it's really helpful and it can help you score really high on the rubric. Tip number 2 is to develop a strong research question. It took me a few tries to get a really solid research question because you don't want it to be too broad, but you also don't want it to be too specific. My 2 general pieces of guidance for coming up with a research question are that you should be able to come up with a clear conclusion, and that your conclusion or your analysis should be something that would help the business that you're analyzing in some way. For example, my research question, which was centered on if the restaurant I was analyzing should add a vegetarian option to their menu, that actually helped the business because I did research within the community about if people actually wanted a vegetarian option, and I used all these tools and methods to analyze if that would be monetarily beneficial for them. My report actually helped the business in some way. Tip number 3 for the business IA that I think personally helped me the most is to look at the IB mastery page about the business IA. I'll put the link to that website page down below in the description. Pretty much on that page is a complete list of everything that you need to include on your business IA. It breaks it down super clearly, everything from each little thing you need to put in your introduction, the tools you should be using to how you should format your conclusion or your abstract. Basically just a checklist, and made it so that there was nothing that I could possibly miss in the business IA, and ensured that I hit all of those marks on the rubric. Tip number 4 is about how to choose the tools you're going to use for your analysis. For the business IA, you need to use theoretical frameworks or tools, I forget what they're called, fancy IB language. And to find those tools, all I did was open my textbook and just scan through the pages looking for something that my mind could comprehend, because some of the stuff in that textbook, especially the financial tools, can be really difficult, but I found ones that I understood and that could be applied to my business. You can also probably find a free PDF online of the business textbook. ibdocuments.com is, I think, a website full of all of the textbooks. Slightly illegal, but it works really well. And my fifth and final tip for the business IA is just to look at past business IAs. I was planning on linking my business IA down below for you guys to look at, but I realized that legally I couldn't do that because it involves like financial information from the business that I talked to. But there are hella business IAs online that you can use. I'll link to some of the business IAs that I personally looked at down below in the description too. So those were my top 5 tips for the IB business IA. Let me know if there's anything more specific you want to hear about the business IA, any other IB things or college tips in general. Thank you for listening, and hopefully this video helped. See you guys later.